thank you, Mrs. McCambry, for being here this evening. And let me go ahead and get into this information. It's a lot of information I got to cover in a very short period of time. And to be honest with you, I need to write a book about this. It's not really enough for me to be able to go into just 10 things, but I tried to pick out 10 things that I felt not only was really a reflection of what I learned, but also they could be relevant in your lives as well. Many of you know me. I'm always, trying to teach and inspire and really make an impact on anybody I come across. And that is certainly a characteristic that I learned from my grandfather. But first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me for tonight's mentorship conference call. If you didn't know, we do these every first Sunday of every month. We discuss a wide range of topics in effort to give you assistance on your journey towards the success you are looking to achieve. Just like my wife said, my name is Rico McCambry. I'm the founder, president, and CEO of Nove. For those of you who never heard of us, maybe somebody sent you this flyer. But outside of a businessman and a CEO, I'm also a husband, a father of three, a son and a grandson. And to that point, tonight is a very special call that I'm dedicating to my grandfather, whom I call PawPaw. Okay, if you saw the flyer that was promoted, it says the richest man I have ever known. And this title, it wasn't referencing money. I think somebody in the thread said, wow, like they thought that, man, out of everybody I met, he was the one with the most money. But no, that title wasn't referencing money when I said he's the richest man I've ever known. And when I talk about PawPaw, when I travel across the country and I speak, when I do webinars, when I bring him up, I always reference him as the richest man that I've ever known, not because of his money, but because of his wisdom. He taught me how to treat people right, communicate with people, and lead people. My gift of speaking and teaching was shaped by watching him in the pulpit of churches in my formative years. And I'm grateful to God to have had Reverend James H. Watson as my pawpaw and the man that taught me to be a man. And I think it's critically important, even for a lot of our single mothers out there, that you have a father figure in your child's life. I wrote a book called The Fatherless Father, and I talk about, and I challenge the cliche that a woman can't raise a man. And my mother is also largely responsible for the man I am today. And I grew up in a single parent home, but my mother was very intentional about making sure she had solid male figures around me to make sure that helped shape me into what I was to become. So if you're listening to this right now, and if you are in a situation where you're raising a son, or if you know somebody who's raising a son, try to make sure that, you could expose them to a male figure, that could help mold them into what, God has put them on this earth to be. I am so grateful for my mother for making sure she did that. And for those who don't have that kind of access, just stay tuned. My goal this year is to form an organization where we can provide that type of role model, that type of model and mentor for individuals out there that don't have that type of access, because everyone needs it, right? Everyone certainly needs it. But like I said, I grew up in a single parent home in a couple of different housing projects early on in my life. For those of you who don't know, that's when you're living in areas where, you need government assistance because, you don't have it like that. But PawPaw was my mother's father and the main father figure I had in my life growing up. The foundation that I was given by his wisdom helped me become successful in what I feel like all areas of my life. So tonight, my goal is to share with you 10 lessons I was taught that has helped me live well. Okay, maybe you're going to be able to use a couple of these or even all 10 to ramp up your efforts in living your best life. So to add additional context, I know Shanae talked about it a little bit on the beginning of the call, and some of you, maybe you just jumped on and you didn't hear what she was talking about. But to give you additional context to tonight's call and this information I'm going to share with you, after a short fight with late-stage dementia, PawPaw actually passed away last weekend, unfortunately. This has been the hardest thing for me to deal with since my mother passed away back in 2011. So that was almost 13 years ago. I built up enough strength to speak right before his eulogy, that was given on yesterday. And I feel like I represented well. And since Granny told me she was pleased, nothing else even matters. Okay. So I'm going to share a little bit of what I talked about yesterday. And also I'm going to go more into depth tonight. And I'm certainly going to try to get through all of this tonight without getting emotional. I don't know, why Shanae wanted to come on here beforehand, and say a few things. And then she started getting emotional, and obviously I know she wanted to surprise me. She loves me. But man, it definitely hit me, before I got started. So I'm going to try to make sure I stay on track and not get emotional. But if that happens, just give me a minute to get myself together and I'll get back on track. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, number one. First thing, one of the first things I learned, of course, growing up, was, and obviously as I became an adult, one of the first lessons that I understood that PawPaw was teaching me over time was to invest into your children with your time. All right, so hopefully y'all are taking notes because I'm not here tonight just to put on a show, right? Some of you showed up and maybe you want to be encouraged and motivated. And yeah, you're going to get encouraged and motivated, but it's incredibly important to understand that this is also an education process. This is also a training, right? To be able to get you to a point of making sure that you start developing archives of information to help you get rich. And I'm not just talking about financially, I'm talking about in every area of your life. And I guarantee you, there's some things I'm going to share with you over the course of the next few minutes that's going to help you start building wealth for not only yourself, but for generations to come. Because for me, that's what true wealth is all about. Not just money, but about you being wealthy and happy and healthy in all areas of your life, and also being able to pass it on to your kids and to your kids' kids. That's what we call an inheritance. All right. So number one lesson is to invest into your children with your time. I shared on social media last Saturday night when PawPaw passed away last Saturday. I announced of his passing, and I said in that post that I saw him as a superhero growing up. I explained I like superheroes for two reasons. Number one, because they helped out so many people, and number two, because they never died. See, growing up, I felt like PawPaw was invincible. I learned so much by what he verbally taught me, but I also learned even more by what I saw him do and not do. So it's important for us to understand, as we are our own examples for our children and for the people that we lead, it's not just about what we do, that they see us as a leader and that they follow our lead, but it's also about what they see us not do. And I believe that that was really two of the most critical things about me following his leadership and me, being mentored by him. That's my first mentor in life, right? Not only about what I saw him do, but also what I saw him not do. So it's important that you have boundaries in your own life so you're able to be a good reflection and show people what to do, but also they can look at your life by what you're not doing so they can know what they shouldn't. I went on to mention in that post that PawPaw was my first best friend. He'd wake up in the mornings and take me with him to meet his other preacher buddies at a place called Miss Winter's Chicken and Biscuits. Okay, for those of you who are on here who are from Georgia, and I think Miss Winters might have been in a few other places, but we had a place called Miss Winter's Chicken and Biscuits in McDonough, one of our only restaurants back in the early 80s. And that's where he used to take me, and he would drink coffee with other pastors, and they would talk about God, and they would talk about different things going on in the community, and they would talk about what was going on in the world. And me being 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, I really didn't know what was going on, but I always say that he was prepping me early on for business meetings because he knew I was going to be something special in the future. He would take me almost every single morning to meet with these preachers, and even sometimes in the evening to the barbershop of one of his good friends as well. So the fact is that PawPaw was always willing to let me spend time with him and also take me to places and even show up when I had some events, allowed me to realize the importance that, we play in the lives of our own children. PawPaw's presence in my early life benefited my future perspective of how a man should be present for his children is tremendous. Okay. So if you listen to this right now, that's not only good for a man, but it's also good for a woman as well. Being able to invest time into your children, because that's going to help produce great individuals into the future. Number two is family should always be first. Family should always be first. Family isn't just one thing, Rico. Papa used to say, family is everything. All right. Family isn't just one thing, family is everything. See, will it be some days you feel like quitting? Yes, but just don't quit. That's what he would always say, in regards to family. Him and my grandmother were married 64 years. That's quite a long time. That's quite a long time. And even though my mother, when she passed, she wasn't married, the rest of my uncles and aunts, they've been in relationships for decades, because of the model that they saw with my grandparents. And I believe that not only was PawPaw consistent with the way he showed up for me, but he was also that way with the entire family. Of course, he couldn't be everywhere at once, but with 5 children and multiple grandchildren, I watched him do what he could. But something as simple as being home every day at the same time was enough to help me form boundaries in my own mind of how to operate as a father and as a husband. Something as simple as us sitting down and eating dinner at the same time and praying over our food together, right? Before we ate, and just getting together for no reason on the weekends and sitting outside together and enjoying the weather. We didn't even have to spend any money, but just sitting outside and enjoying the weather and eating potato chips and drinking water, okay? And Kool-Aid. Any of y'all remember Kool-Aid? And being thankful for what we did, and being thankful for what we had, and listening to him always encourage and build us up and correct us in times when we were doing things the wrong way. I can remember on multiple occasions, Papa would call family meetings early on, me and my cousins, where we were staying there for an extended time, and we'll have to face many lectures on what needed to happen before corrective action would take place. Y'all know what corrective action is? Okay. This was when we were lucky because sometimes he would make us stand in line like we were about to get executed. And we would have to meet the belt of the switch, right? Y'all heard that part of the Bible, it's about, spare the rod, spoil the child. I definitely wasn't spoiled growing up, but he taught me that, hey, in order to be able to do things the right way, and if you don't, there are going to be consequences. I know many parents these days don't pass out whippings like we used to get back in the day, but I can assure you it definitely taught me how to have a certain amount of boundaries in my adult years. And I think that's something critical for all of us, even as adults now. We should be able to have boundaries that we don't cross, right? There should be a level of integrity that you have, and those things, need to be embraced if you're going to be able to have success long term. Number 3 was showing up is important. Showing up is important. Many times we get involved with things and even make certain commitments, but when others quit on us, we quit, giving up on our commitments. PawPaw pastored a church that was almost an hour away, it seemed like, from where we lived at the time. And it seemed like it used to take us days to be able to get to that church and then days to be able to get back home. And it's kind of a crazy story because the church PawPaw pastored, and I believe I was around 8 years old when he started pastoring that church. That was actually the hometown of where Shanae was living. And we were going back and forth to this church for decades, for years. And I never met Shanae until obviously later, in my young adult life. But that was just kind of like a funny story because the church was maybe less than a couple of miles from where she was living. But during that time, man, it seemed like it would take us forever to get to church and forever to get back home. But no matter how many people showed up each week, PawPaw was always there. Whether it was 10 people, whether it was 60 people, whether it was 100 people, whether it was 6 people, he showed up and preached like it was 1,000 people. I never heard him complain about the lack of participation, never heard him complain about the lack of involvement of others. I just saw him stay true to his commitment and his calling and remain steadfast to his calling and responsibility to deliver for what he was supposed to do. It seemed like, we would drive miles and miles to go to different revivals way deeper into the country. But whenever I saw PawPaw make commitments, he always kept them. He told me once, Rico, I can't control what other people do, I can encourage them, but I cannot control them. The only person I can control is myself. He says some people will be inspired by what they see you do, and some people wouldn't get inspired no matter what happens. So focus on what you can control, and everything else will come together. And he said, we're doing it for God anyway. Now that's a strong statement, y'all. You know, that's a strong statement. You know, that's a strong lesson that I feel like will serve everyone listening right now for the rest of our lives. Because we got to understand that we can't just get upset all the time based on what other people do. Now, sometimes is it frustrating? Absolutely. Sometimes maybe you may even get angry because you put so much into things and some other people put so little. But at the end of the day, you got to remember that you can't control what they do. You can encourage them. You can try to motivate them. You can talk to them. But at the end of the day, you got to understand that all you can do is control yourself. All you can do is continue to have faith in God, put your best foot forward, and understand that all you can do is focus on what you can control, and eventually things are going to come together, especially if you're doing it for the grace of God, especially if you're understanding that you're going to put your best foot forward no matter what. I always feel like when you do the right thing, the right things are going to eventually happen for you, even though if they're not happening right now. But if you're doing the right thing, and even though other people are not doing the right thing, in spite of, you still do the right thing because you're doing it for the grace of God. God is going to make sure that those things are going to work out for you. And I can tell you, that's not only something that I learned from him telling me, but I've always seen that play out in my personal and my business life, time after time after time. That's why I'm always so faithful. That's why I always don't get too rattled whatsoever, because I know the work I'm doing is for the grace of God and for God's people. And if anybody do me wrong, they're going to pay for it on the back end. And I'm still going to be able to get what I'm going after because of why I'm doing it. So I think that's important for all of us to be able to embrace. Number 4, be confident in who you are. That's what he taught me early on. Be confident in who you are and what you're doing. You know, PawPaw taught me early on that you should be comfortable and confident in your message and what you're doing, no matter who you are around. He always taught me at the end of the day that I'm just as good as anybody else. He taught me, now, don't act like you're better than anybody else, because you're not better than anybody else. But Rico, you're just as good as anybody else. That might be a good one to write down. We're not better than anybody else, but we're just as good as anybody else. So if I believe that I'm just as good as anybody else, then I can believe I'm the best. I can believe I can have it all. I can believe I can achieve. Yeah, sometimes I may fail, but guess what? I can get back up and win. Why? Because I'm confident in who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am, no matter with who I'm around. Also because I know who's on the inside of me. So you got to understand there's multiple reasons for you to believe. You got people out there that say, hey, well, I don't believe in God. I think that's sad. I think it's sad when people don't have any faith, because things are going to happen to you in life and you're not going to know what to do. And if you don't have anything to stand on but logic, you will kill yourself. See, but when you got some faith on the inside of you, it doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter what people do. It doesn't even matter what happens, because when you got faith and when you can be confident in that faith, you got to understand there's almost no way you can lose. See, I saw PawPaw comfortable around all races of people. I saw PawPaw confident around all age ranges of people. I saw PawPaw confident around all genders. I admire how he could hold a conversation with anyone and treat everyone the same. He could hold a conversation with anyone and treat everyone the same. I believe what inspired me most to become a speaker, what inspired me most to become a motivator, is watching PawPaw over the years in the pulpit of different churches, being able to energize people with his words, being able to cause them to think differently, being able to cause them to change their behavior. Even if it was just for a short period of time, it amazed me at how he was able to do that. It was fascinating how he was able to take a Bible scripture and use analogies and stories to drive home a point and make people want to come closer to God and learn how this Christianity thing works. You know, PawPaw's smile was contagious. He always talked with his hands. You know, that could draw you in if nothing else did, because he was always using his body language and his energy and his charisma to be able to win you over and to change the way you thought. His sheer energy would make you question whether or not your thought process was right. He always said, if you want someone else to believe something, you're trying to tell them it's important that you believe it first. Think about that. You know, do you believe what you're trying to get other people to believe? That's the question you got to ask yourself. And if you don't believe what you're trying to get other people to believe, then you're going to have a hard time trying to get them to believe it. Now, I know that was a lot of believing in one sentence, but you know, you need to be able to rewind it and check that out again, because if you don't believe what you're trying to get somebody else to believe, then you're going to have a hard time trying to get them to believe it. So it's important for you to be able to identify, what do you believe? What do you stand on? What is it that somebody can't do to knock you off your mark, no matter what they say? And when you start having that kind of belief, it comes out as passion, and then you'll be able to make them believe. See, because if you believe it, you can start making others believe. Number 5, your name is the only thing you have. Your name is the only thing you have. And I'm wearing this shirt, y'all, to say amen. If y'all get excited and I say something y'all like, you know, Papa always say, just can I get an amen? All right. So make sure y'all drop that. Papa would like that. I know he's somewhere there smiling as I'm giving y'all this information. Number 5 is your name is the only thing you have. You know, as I grew up in McDonough, Georgia, a lot of y'all heard about McDonough because that's where I was blessed enough to be able to receive a proclamation, what they call January 19th, Mr. Rico McDaniel McCambry Day, right? And that's where PawPaw and Granny also grew up. That's where they raised my mother and her brothers and sisters. That's where I grew up. You know, and as I grew up in McDonough and I started making my way around the city and engaging with older people, I remember them always saying things like, oh, yeah, that's Reverend Watson's grandson. He's good. When I would go into places, because PawPaw had a good name around town. He had a good name in different areas around the state. It was like I was granted access or believed because of PawPaw's street cred. Okay. And that's short for credibility. Okay. You know, people say, do you got street cred? Okay. That was his street credibility that gave me access. It gave me believability because of the credibility he gained because of his name. See, PawPaw used to always tell me that your name was more valuable than money. That may be another one to jot down, because these days people really don't care about their name, right? Your name was more valuable than money, because when you have a good name, you could always get access to the money or credit you need. Now, granted, in today's world, since we are so spread out and people don't know you like they used to do in small towns like in the mid to late 1900s, there is still social capital you can build up based on what you're known for and the track record that you're building. Now, that's why it's always important to do the right thing. Always important to do the right thing. People will lie on you, sure. But if you build a good track record over time and people catch you doing good, way more than doing bad, you are building a good name for yourself and earn the credibility you need. Now, sure, people make mistakes. Sure, no one's perfect. But you don't want to be caught making way more mistakes than you're doing good. All right? Because if you're making way more mistakes than you're doing good, then we need to reanalyze your decision-making so you can make sure you can build some different credibility. But never risk your good name for money or fame, because the money and fame can fade, but you're stuck with your name for life. That's a good lesson I learned, y'all. Number 6, attitude is everything. Attitude is everything. When I had a bad attitude growing up, Papa used to say things like, boy, your attitude is like 4 flat tires. Until you pump them up, you ain't going nowhere. I mean, think about it. If you got 4 flat tires on your car, you're going nowhere if you don't pump those tires up. And you're going nowhere in life unless you pump up your attitude. Unless you improve your attitude, it's going to be very difficult for you to succeed. A bad attitude will prevent you from communicating well. A bad attitude will prevent you from being able to engage people. A bad attitude will prevent you from thinking straight. A bad attitude will affect your health. A bad attitude obviously is going to affect your relationships. See, when you have a bad attitude, it affects everything around you. So if you want to be able to improve your life, you got to improve your attitude. This taught me that most times that my negative results were tied to my negative attitude. And if I changed my attitude, my results would change. See, remembering that I can't control anyone else but myself and alter my attitude has helped me out tremendously, in different situations, and also making better decisions that help me persevere and also help me succeed. Number 7, do something different to get something different. He always encouraged me to be able to do something different to get something different. Even though PawPaw wasn't essentially an entrepreneur and grew big businesses himself, he understood that there were things that needed to be done different to get different results. As I started my entrepreneurship journey, at 20 years old, and many didn't understand and even discouraged me from walking into the unknown. PawPaw had some advice on that. I can remember the first opportunity meeting I went to back in July 2001. This affiliate marketing industry, the same business model that Nove has today, and what we've been successful at becoming. Someone invited me to a meeting that was similar to our business model, same exact business model, back in July 2001. And I'd never heard of the business model before, never even understood it existed. And I got excited about starting a business for myself and about making lots of money. From the presentation that I saw, and the first few people I spoke to didn't believe that it was possible. Even my mama and granny, were telling me to steer clear. They were saying, focus on school, keep your job, don't get involved in that. And I was just about to quit. Back in July of 2001, I talked to a few people that rejected my advances on getting them involved or even just giving them the information. And I was just about to quit. I want y'all to understand the magnitude of these statements I'm making right now. What I'm saying, I was just about to quit back in July 2001. And even though I had just started and I decided to go talk to PawPaw before throwing in the towel, I'd already paid my money to get in. I'd already got some information, but I was just about to call the company the next day and quit. But I decided to go talk to PawPaw about it. And I explained the whole thing to him. And PawPaw asked me, he said, son, no disrespect to me and your granny, but do you want to achieve more than us financially? And I said, well, no disrespect to you and Granny PawPaw, but yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do want to achieve more than you and Granny financially. He said, well, if you want more than us financially, then why would you come to us and ask us for financial advice? Now, I want y'all to let that hit you real quick because it seems like that should be common sense. But one of the things I learned, common sense ain't so common. But I was going to them to get approval from them on what they thought about, a business proposal when they hadn't even been in business. I was going to them and talk to them about what they thought about me becoming a millionaire when they hadn't even made $1 million. Now, and PawPaw totally understood it up front. Like he didn't understand business per se, but he did understand that I'm asking them for their approval on something that they don't even have a concept of knowing or even if it's valid. And PawPaw said this after he asked me that question. He said, I don't know much about that business thing, but what I do understand, if you are connecting with someone that's succeeding and that can teach you something different and help you get their results, then boy, you should listen. And over the last 20 years, I've been able to become pretty successful in what PawPaw called this business thing. I'm super grateful to PawPaw. See, because if PawPaw didn't have the wisdom, even though he didn't have knowledge of business, PawPaw didn't have a bachelor's, in business administration. He didn't have an MBA. He didn't have any of that. But PawPaw had enough wisdom to say, son, if you want something different, you got to do something different. And that one lesson, y'all, has not only changed my life, but it's going to change millions of other lives. Just because I didn't quit that day because of what PawPaw taught me. Okay? That was number 7. Number 8, take the high road. Take the high road. As I grew up and I started to learn about leadership, PawPaw warned me about negative encounters, lies, and deceit that would take place. But if I were going to be in a position of leadership, that I had to take the high road. Now, some of y'all might not like this, especially depending on how you were raised. My mother was a type that she was very nice, sweet lady, but if look, if you want to get busy, she could get busy. She ain't play that, right? She knows, no, she'll take any road, but you do not want to cross it, right? But PawPaw taught me to take the high road, right? He explained it's a road that is far less traveled by many. Now, I want y'all to think about this because we're talking about greatness now. We're not talking about what the average person does. We're not talking about what most people do. We're talking about you entering into the presence of greatness when you're able to think this way and be able to embrace these ideals, and you're able to separate yourself from others. He explained it, a road that is less traveled by many. He said, despite unfortunate circumstances or actions by others, we must always remain true to who we are. I've noticed over the years that in some ways, social media has gone from a platform to inspire and motivate others to a platform where hurt people hurt people. And not only is it a platform where hurt people, but there's a crowd of onlookers busy instigating in the comments, sharing and tagging people so they can come and instigate in the comments. See, we should not post on social media merely to get likes, comments, create controversy, stir up drama, or even post on social media to prove a point. We should post on social media displaying the evidence of God's glory and inspiring others to live their best life. Never at the expense of somebody else's defamation. This is greatness, y'all. I'm not the average person gonna tell you, nah, somebody want to snap on you on social media, you snap back. Somebody's going to say, they're going to call you out on social media, you call them out too. They want to act the fool, you act the fool too. PawPaw, you tell me, boy, you don't wrestle with pigs. I said, you don't wrestle with pigs. Why would I want to wrestle with a pig? But a lot of people do. It's because when you wrestle with a pig, you get dirty and they're going to like it. I think I heard earlier today, somebody said something like a lion doesn't turn their head and look at a barking dog. One of the ways I teach it is greatness doesn't respond to mediocrity. So you got to understand that if you're here and you have an assignment that's greater than the negativity, if you have an assignment that's greater than the foolishness, then why would you respond to it? Why would you want to get involved with it? If somebody's going to act like an idiot, why are you going to go join the conversation? See, it's important to understand that if you truly believe you're a leader, if you truly believe you're blessed, if you truly believe that you got it already, then why are you acting like you don't? See, PawPaw taught no matter how much negative energy and darkness attempts to flow our way, positive energy and the light will force it out. I'm going to say it again. He said, no matter how much negative energy and darkness attempts to flow our way, positive energy and the light will force it out. See, God's grace sustains those that believe and are faithful. Now, see, some people just don't believe all the way. Some people are still maybe early on in their walk with God. See, but if you consider yourself a mature Christian, then you should believe. You should believe that the grace is going to sustain you. You should believe that your faith is going to sustain you. You ain't got to be that person. Oh, they keep testing me. If they keep testing me, if they keep poking me, no, you ain't even got to go there. You ain't even got to go there because it's God's grace that sustains you. It's your faith that sustains you. He reminded me in the Bible that Jesus taught us, whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other one to him also. It says it in the Bible, y'all. I know y'all thinking, yeah. I remember that. Oh, you just reminded me. And that's something that everybody can't do. You know, say, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Y'all, let me tell y'all what I do. I pray for my enemies. That's what I do. I pray for my enemies. And it makes me stronger. And typically what happened, even in the midst of me praying for my enemies, I become more blessed. See, never focus on getting even. This one y'all need to write down right here. Never focus on getting even, but rather focus on getting ahead. Don't focus on getting even, focus on getting ahead. Don't focus on getting even, focus on getting ahead. See, that's what happens when you take the high road. Because watch this, vengeance is not ours, it's God's. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? Now, I know y'all, I'm telling y'all, average people ain't gonna agree. Average people ain't gonna agree. Worldly people are not going to agree. But if you got some faith, y'all got to start showing people that you got it. Number 9, y'all, I'm almost done. Number 9, leadership has its challenges. Leadership has its challenges. And this is one of the things I'm so grateful for, y'all. I know y'all seen me, going into this year is the 10th year that Nove's been in business. And God knows we've certainly been through some things over the course of these 10 years. Just like anybody else that done anything for 10 years. Most people don't get through a year doing something. But talk to somebody been married for 10 years. They're going to tell you, oh, yeah, we've been through a lot. Oh, yeah, because of God's grace, we still here. Anybody. Like, if you're doing anything for that long, you're going to go through some things. And I can tell you right now that I'm so grateful for having somebody in my life like PawPaw to talk to when I was going through things. And he taught me a few things like this when it comes to leadership. Because I've always been pretty ambitious since I can remember. PawPaw always encouraged the ambition, but he also cautioned me to remember things along the way because leadership is not for the weak or the faint of heart. For example, he would always say things like this. It's a tough life for a man to live and to be all the way at the top. And he would refer being at the top like a totem pole, right? Like a flag pole. You go all the way to the top of a flag pole. He said, because the higher you go up the pole, the more of your behind, that's your butt, B-U-T-T, okay? The more of your behind is exposed to everyone on the ground. The higher you go, the more of your behind is exposed to everybody on the ground, meaning you're always going to be criticized. You're always going to be talked about. You're always going to be ridiculed. The higher you go, they're always going to be looking at what's going on because your bottom is more exposed so everyone can see. The higher you go, the more people see. So he told me that you're always going to be criticized. You're always going to be talked about. He also made certain that I understood that the bottom was nowhere I wanted to be either. But that halfway was just the right spot. He said halfway up that pole was just the right spot because it always allowed for room to grow and the right amount of scrutiny. Halfway. See, but when it came to being criticized, he reminded me that if people ain't talking about you, that means you ain't doing nothing. So if they're going to watch you, give them a good show and give them something good to talk about. In a good way, of course. I always tell people, just take out the popcorn and start popping it, baby, because you ain't seen nothing yet. I still believe that I am in the initial phase of the blessings that God has for me. Somebody talk to me right now. I don't know about you, but my best days are still ahead of me. And you got to believe the same thing. You got to believe like you can't resist success because you don't want the critics. You don't want the haters. You know, PawPaw told me one time, boy, if you want the devil and evil people to leave you alone, you might as well ask God to stop blessing you. Because the more you're blessed or about to become blessed, the more they'll come to mess with you. So we all must anticipate these things if we want to be great. We all must anticipate these things if we want to be leaders. We all must anticipate these things if all our work is going towards and we're building for the glory of God. We all should anticipate the devil and haters. That's just the way it works. But you're going to be all right. Number 10, y'all, this is the last one. And there's going to be some good stuff with this, but I'm going to drive it home with this right here. There are several other things I could have talked about here tonight, but for the sake of time, I kept it to 10. But for this last one, if I could summarize what I've learned from PawPaw collectively to become successful in this lifetime, is we must complete 3 phases of life to live a full life. We must complete these 3 phases of life to live a successful life. And hopefully you'll jot these down. I call these 3 phases of life: learn, earn, and return. Learn, earn, and return. That's the 3 phases of life. See, those who successfully complete this, and a lot of times it may take maybe 20 to 25 years in each phase. The first 20 to 25 years of your life, maybe you earn. In the next 20 to 25, the first 20 to 25 you learn, the next 20 to 25 years you earn, and the last 20 to 25 you return. Maybe it's 30 or 40 in each section. Maybe some of the phases may take more years than others and some less. But if you get all 3, you live the successful life. But let me break this down real quick for you. Number 1 is learn. What does that mean? You want to learn as much as you can. Learn as much as you can from who you can, while you can. You want to stay curious. You want to make sure you're always finding ways to get closer to God. You know, a lot of people feel like they stop learning when they get out of school. They graduate from high school and they think they're done. They never read a book again. They never go to a seminar. They never jump on a webinar. They just think they know it all. And see, when you stop learning, you really stop growing. And when you stop growing, what starts happening is you die. So there are a lot of people walking around here each and every day. They look like they're alive, but they're dead on the inside because they have stopped growing. So what you want to do is you want to start learning. Even though if you stop learning, you can start right now. So you need to find people who are examples of how things should be done, but you also want to find people who are warnings of how things shouldn't be done. Because you can learn from both. You can learn from people who are super successful, but you can also learn from people who are not successful at all. And you want to stay away from those things that the not so successful people are doing. I heard somebody say one time, you can even learn from a fool. A fool could teach you something. Now, maybe not necessarily what you should do, but they can teach you absolutely what you shouldn't be doing. So you want to make sure you stay learning, because when you stay learning, what happens is you can grow into the next phase that's called earning. See, when you learn well, you can start to earn. But moving back to this learn, y'all, make sure you learn to get better each and every day. One of the things I failed to mention that PawPaw taught me early on is do whatever job you're doing the best you can. Like PawPaw taught me, boy, if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper they can find. My first job was working at McDonald's, not flipping hamburgers, not working in the drive-thru. I had to sweep the parking lot. At 14 years old, I was hired at McDonald's. We had like it was like a truck stop parking lot. It was huge. It was like a football field size parking lot. And I would come to work on Saturday mornings at 6 o'clock in the morning in the wintertime. I have to get out there and sweep that parking lot, trash all over the parking lot. And let me tell you something, they gave me like a certificate for being the best parking lot sweeper that they had ever hired at McDonald's. Why? Because PawPaw taught me that. He said, boy, I don't care how small the job is, you do it the best of your ability. That has served me well all my life. You could be in a job right now at the bottom of the pyramid, but if you treat that job like you're the CEO, one day you'll become one. That's what PawPaw taught me. And see, when you develop that kind of discipline and you give whatever you do your all for the glory of God, not for your ego, not so you can get an award, not so you can get paid well. Because let me tell you something. If you do the best you do, if you do the best job you can do, you're going to get paid well anyway. But if you decide to do this job well and that job not so well, then that becomes a habit and it'll show up in your life. See, when you learn and do those things very well, what happens is you start to earn. You move into this next phase, earn. And you want to earn as much as you can. And I'm not just talking about money. Now, am I talking about money? Yes. You want to earn as much as you can. Why? So you can be a blessing to other people. See, if you can barely pay your bills, how are you going to help somebody else pay theirs? If you can barely donate to your own bank account, how are you going to donate to an organization? How are you going to help feed somebody else if you can't feed yourself? So you want to be able to earn as much as you can, but watch this. What you also want to earn is respect. You want to earn more respect than you want to earn money. See, because respect will last longer. See, the goal is not to be liked. The goal is to be respected. Understand that. Because respect is going to last longer. See, if you earn a lot of money and if you earn a lot of respect and you become influential, then your reach can go further. If you're influential and if you're rich, your reach could stretch for miles. Your reach could stretch all across the world if you were rich and well respected. So you want to learn, and then you want to spend the next phase earning, and then you want to take what you earn and then you want to return. You want to return as much as you can while you can. What does this mean? You want to teach. See, now since you have the money, that means you got time, and now you have the influence. That means people will listen. So now you want to be able to teach and take care of others. You want to spend this phase of your life being able to take care of more people than you. You want to go back and take care of the people that took care of you. Think about that. All of you who are listening to me right now should pray for the day where you can not only take care of yourself, but take care of the people that took care of you. Not only can you take care of yourself, but take care of people that don't even know you. See, that's the blessing. Getting to a point where you can just peel off a little money and take care of people that need it, and you don't even know who they are. And you don't care. Why? Because you got it like that. That's what we call return. Having enough to take care of yourself and others is the ultimate blessing. Learn, earn, and return. Speaking of returning, I know Shanae kind of alluded to it at the beginning of the call, but almost 43 years ago, for those of you who missed it, almost 43 years ago, on a rainy Friday, Granny called PawPaw to inform him of my mother's condition of going into labor and the need for him to follow a medical transport vehicle to a facility, which he did, and he witnessed me coming into this world almost 43 years ago. But last Saturday, 43 years later, on a rainy Saturday, after Granny called me the night prior, they informed me of PawPaw's condition and his need to go to a medical facility. I came and I trailed a medical transport vehicle with Uncle Kevin to a facility where I witnessed him leaving this world. 43 years ago, he trailed a medical vehicle and witnessed me coming into this world. 43 years later, I trailed a medical vehicle and I witnessed him leaving this world. See, the story is a little ironic, but the blessing in this story is before he exited the world physically, he was able to see me begin to earn. And by those earnings, he was able to see me starting to return based on what I was able to learn from him. Now, I'm going to say that again to make sure y'all caught it, because, when I said this story, about 43 years ago and 43 years later, and about him trailing the vehicle and see me being born, and about me trailing the vehicle and me watching him take his last breath. Like I had to tell this story over and over again as I was practicing, to refrain from getting emotional. But then when I thought about the irony and I thought about, the goodness of God and PawPaw being able to witness, seeing me earn, and then being able to see me return based on what I learned from him, I can say, glory be to God. I could smile. I could get excited. I could know that what he came to this earth for was fulfilled. His purpose was fulfilled. And a question I got for you is, how's your purpose going? You see, you may still be in your learning phase today, right? Maybe you're 25, 30, maybe you're 40, maybe you may be 50 or 60 years old. You still may be in your learning phase because prior to now, nobody ever broke it down to you like this. Maybe you didn't have a PawPaw to tell you this is how things are supposed to go. Listen up because I'm about to give it to you. See, even if your learning phase is just starting today, or even if you're in the midst of it, maybe at the end of it, but what if in a few years you started to earn? You started earning respect. You started earning more and more money. Then a few years after that, you started to return. What kind of difference could you make if you at least tried? I'm giving you the framework. And yeah, could it be a little bit more complicated? Yes, it could. But at the end of the day, it's simplified right now. You want to learn, you want to earn, then you want to return. See, we all have a gap. And that's the space between the day we're born and the day we die. And what we do in between will define how we're remembered when we're gone, when we die. When we physically leave this world, we will be judged based on the gap. And PawPaws Gap didn't only benefit me, but now his gap is going to benefit millions of people that will be touched by me as a result of what he put in me during his gap. See, the question I have for you is, what are you doing with your gap? What are you doing with your gap? You want to be able to jot that down. I know tonight was all about me paying tribute to PawPaw and talking about these 10 lessons that I was taught and talking about how he's the richest man I've ever known. But all of this message is wrapped up in a real pretty box with a bow on top to give it to you and say, bam, what are you doing with your gap? Where you are in your process of learning, earning, and returning. See, the last week has been super tough for me. And if you have lost someone you love to death, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Many of you probably thinking back to how close you are with some that have gone before you and taught you different things. You can absolutely relate, and that's why you're here listening. Some of you may have tears going down your face right now because of the emotion that's tied to everything that you dealt with concerning the loss of a loved one. My mother's been passed away now for over 13 years, and I still cry sometimes thinking about her not being here. So if one of your loved ones are sick right now and may be headed in that direction, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There are many of us on here that could resonate with these feelings, but overall, these lessons, PawPaw always taught me to place my faith in the Almighty God over all these things that I just taught y'all about. No matter what I was facing with God, I was going to be able to make it through. But I know today is tough. It's tough for me. It's tough for all of us. It's tough if you're going through things right now. If you went through things, it's tough. Things are going to be tough. PawPaw taught me that tough times would come. There's so many other things I could share that I learned in regards to this. But I'm going to say to you is that this is where our faith in God comes into play. It may sound cliche, like something we're supposed to say, but ask yourself this. When you think of your faith, how do you really know God is a healer if you've never been sick? Think about that. How do you really know God is a provider if you never get hungry? How do you know God is a way maker if you've never been lost? See, we go through these things to test and improve our faith if we truly believe. See, if we've been hungry and we still lived and we got food later, we knew that it was God that brought us through that. If we got sick and then we got healed, our faith is stronger now because it was God that got us through that. So even in the midst of our pain and sorrow, there's still a promise, and that promise, y'all, is God is still on the throne. God is a comforter, and trusting in him will bring the peace you need to survive and get you back to thriving. Because no matter what you're going through, this too shall pass. PawPaw live well, and I pray after today in this message, you choose to live well also. And I'm going to end with one more of his signature lines. I'm too blessed to be stressed and too anointed to be disappointed. Hopefully these words will encourage you where there's any doubt. God bless each and every one of y'all. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight and being a part of this tribute to the great Reverend James Henry Watson Sr., my PawPaw. God bless y'all, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.